SCP-1284 Monster Spawner. Item Number SCP-1284. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Currently residing in the lounge. All games played by the staff are genres that are not science fiction or horror. Staff risk termination if any game of these two genres are played. Note: any mention of SCP-1282 in this document was recorded before Incident 1282-100A. Description: for all intents and purposes, SCP-1282 looks like and functions identically to a typical video game console designed to play modern games. This file was written in 2013. More advanced video games produced in the future may or may not function with the object. However, when a science fiction or horror game disc is inserted into the tray and played for more than 30 minutes, the object's effect will trigger. When an enemy is defeated in the game, it will issue a death rattle and whisper, "I'll be back." Note that when this game is played through a medium other than 1284, the enemy will not speak this line. It appears that the enemy will say this line even if its in-game model has no mouth or no apparent method of communication. The voice will always sound the same, sounding raspy and masculine in nature. Female enemies will say the line in the same voice. Once the game is turned off, a random enemy the player defeated in the game will manifest itself. At this point, the entity is classified SCP-1284-1 in an area that is completely unobserved by any surveillance, and will begin to make its way towards the person who was playing the game. Once the entity has located its killer, it will begin to attack the subject in a way identical to its attack pattern it displayed in the game. The attack will continue until its target is dead. If the target manages to escape, the entity will begin to hunt him or her down using the abilities it was given by the game developers. See experiments 1 through 5 under designation 1284-001 through 1284-005. This hunt will not cease until the subject is dead. Once this happens, the entity will make its current location its new home and display aggression identical to that it displayed in-game towards any entities that trespass in its new home. Destroying a 1284-1 requires knowledge about the method required to defeat it in the game it originated from. Most of the time, the entities can be killed by conventional firearms quite easily. However, some cases require special methods that are only available in the game the entity originated from, which makes the entity impossible to destroy unless SCP-1282 is utilized. These are 5 experiments performed by D-Class personnel in isolated sections of the facility. Cameras were strategically placed in corridors in order to control where a 1282 or 1284-1 entity could manifest. Listed is the name of test subject, the game that they played, the description of the entities that manifested, and the subsequent results of its hunt and eventual fate of both parties involved. Experiment number 1. Test subject D-1127, a 25-year-old Caucasian male, convicted of multiple counts of rape, currently serving 3 consecutive life sentences. Game used: Doom 3, a first-person shooter in which enemies are highly aggressive demons spawned from hell. Entity description: in-game name is Hellnight. It is a 12-foot-tall hulking brute weighing approximately 2 tons. Displays the ability to manifest volatile superheated plasma in its hand and throw it with great accuracy. Possesses very thick skin which renders it immune to heat of any intensity. Its muscles are so dense that they serve as a form of thick armor, rendering the entity extremely resistant to conventional weaponry. Test results: entity manifested and located D-1127 within 5 minutes. Entity attacked by throwing its plasma, which struck D-1127 in the chest, killing him instantly. A special task force consisting of 7 agents armed with heavy assault weaponry were dispatched. Entity managed to kill 2 agents and severely wound 3 before succumbing to the high-caliber rounds that were used against it. Addendum: test was repeated with the same game. This time a smaller creature manifested which was captured for study. Cursory analysis of the entity shows a DNA structure completely alien in nature, possessing 666 different cell types throughout its body structure and organs. Experiment number 2. Test subject D-3419. an 18-year-old Asian male currently serving a life sentence for murdering all of his female classmates. Game used, Left 4 Dead, a 1 to 4 player first-person shooter that features zombies as the main and only foe. Entity description, standard zombie enemy. Test results, entity manifested and proceeded to track D-3419. Subject was bitten before he managed to kill the manifested entity by snapping its neck. Bite wound festered for 12 hours before D-3419 expired and subsequently reanimated. Security personnel killed the reanimated subject and incinerated the remains without incident. Experiment number 3. Test subject, D-8710, a 45-year-old white female, currently on death row for the murder of her adolescent son and daughter. Game used, Silent Hill Homecoming, a third-person survival horror game that features enemies that are manifested from the tortured psyche of the main character. Entity description, Scarlet, a 12-foot-tall, extremely thin, animate porcelain doll, with an unnaturally large mouth filled with needle-sharp teeth and long beastly claws instead of hands. Test results. Entity manifested and tracked D-8710, locating her within 45 seconds. The creature then proceeded to slowly and deliberately expunged D-8710, apparently deriving pleasure from her agonized screams. Once D-8710 expired from acute blood loss, SCP-1284-1 began to data expunged the corpse, giggling maniacally the whole time. Due to the fact that conventional weapons were ineffective methods of defeat in-game, SCP-1282 was brought in to dispose of the manifested entity. 1282 entered the chamber containing the creature and explained the situation to it. It seemed to understand and allowed 1282 to touch it, which caused the entity to disintegrate to ash. Analysis of this ash showed it to be composed of porcelain, wood, and pottery glazes. Experiment number 4. Test subject, D-2619, a 19-year-old white male currently serving a life sentence for the production and distribution of child pornography. Confirmed sociopath. Game used, Clive Barker's Jericho, a squad-based first-person shooter that features biblical themes, Christian mythology, and many creatures and persons related to the occult. Entity description, God's first creation, a being of tremendous power, so powerful that even God could not destroy it. Resembles a small child with skin almost completely black, and large, round, glowing white eyes, and an angelic voice. Is described in-game to be as old as the universe itself. Test results. Entity manifested and immediately teleported itself to D-2619's location. Upon making eye contact with the entity, D-2619 exploded with great force. SCP-1282 was dispatched immediately to destroy the manifested creature. Upon noticing 1282, the entity said, "Why, hello, dear sister. What brings you here?" 1282 displayed genuine distress, the first time that it was ever observed to be visibly afraid of anything. 1282 angrily screamed, "Fuck you," and promptly grabbed the manifested creature, which then disintegrated to ash. The recovery team was sent in to retrieve the ash for analysis. 1282 pushed them away, stating that even in its current state, the entity was too dangerous for a human being to handle safely. It requested a 1-gallon jug to be filled halfway with water. It then mixed the ashes into the water and gave the mixture to SCP-682 to drink, apologizing to it, saying that it was the only viable method of disposal. After 682 had consumed the entire mixture, it began to moan, displaying extreme discomfort. 5 minutes later, 682 began to emit light from all orifices, and approximately 30 seconds after, began to develop a carapace encasing its entire body. Once the evolution completed, 682 began to emit a red light with a luminosity of approximately 500 lumens. This continued for 10 minutes, and upon ceasing, the carapace collapsed upon itself, revealing that it was hollow, save for a single tooth. 72 hours later, 682 had fully regenerated its body mass from the single tooth. Addendum. 1282 has suggested that 1284 experiments no longer use games that include godlike entities as enemies. All researchers and Foundation leaders have agreed to this restriction without debate. This test has proved an interesting insight into SCP-1282's origin. Experiment number 5. Final experiment. Test subject. D9262. 30-year-old black male. Currently serving a life sentence for hacking top-secret military computer databases and selling advanced weapon technology to information redacted. Confirmed genius level IQ. Game used. SCP Containment Breach. Modified to play on video game consoles. This game features multiple notoriously dangerous SCPs, including SCP-682, 173, and 106. Note: the normal conditions that trigger SCP-1284's effect were not able to be implemented during this test, as the enemies in the game cannot be killed. Entity description. Please refer to SCP-173's file. Test results. Results were not immediately apparent. Test was at first discarded because the object's effect condition was not met during gameplay. However, as soon as D9262 left the chamber, he immediately ran back into the room, whispering profanity and praying. All lighting in the chamber flickered off for approximately 3 seconds. When the lights came back on, D9262 was surrounded by no less than 5 SCP-173s. Subject's neck was broken before 1282 could be dispatched. After all 5 SCP-173s were destroyed, each pile of ash was subjected to analysis. 3 of the 5 samples contained traces of biological material identical to human flesh and bone. The other 2 samples consisted of concrete, steel rebar, and paint. Addendum. SCP-1282 demanded that all further testing of SCP-1284 be suspended indefinitely. Request granted.